guys! Всем привет! Welcome to my channel. Добро пожаловать! Welcome to my kitchen. So you absolutely loved watching my behind the scenes on this recipe. If you're not following me on Instagram, you totally should, because I post a lot of behind the scenes of making these videos and delicious preview of the recipes that are coming to my YouTube channel. You can follow me at AllasYummyFood. I've got the same name across all social media platforms, which I guess makes it easy for everyone. But this cake obviously is a honey cake and it requires no oven, okay? So I know you guys love honey cakes and I've got loads of recipes for that. But there are some people in the world, which, you know, that don't have an oven, okay? And that's absolutely fine. So I wanted to create a recipe honey cake without an oven. So you've heard me right, you can do this with no baking, right in your frying pan. The honey cake comes out amazing. It tastes really good. You can tell a small difference that it wasn't baked. However, if you're not a pro and you haven't eaten, 100 cakes like me, honey cakes, you're not gonna be able to tell too much difference. So it's really easy, all in one method. You're just gonna fry the batter on both sides pretty quickly and then just stack it up. Obviously, I'll show you step by step how to do it, but I just thought it was a really good alternative to those who don't have an oven. Or if you're just lazy and you can't be bothered to bake every single layer, you can fry it instead. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this recipe. Don't forget to give me a big thumbs up for this idea and leave all your comments down below, and of course subscribe. Now let's get baking. First we're gonna make our wet mixture, so add your unsalted butter into your pot together with milk and strong flavored honey. I'm using forest honey and I love the flavor, so here you really want to use the honey that you love because it does come through in your sponges. You then want to cook this on medium heat until your butter and honey and milk incorporates and the butter completely melts. But you don't want to cook this for too long. So once the mixture starts to bubble up, you then want to just take this off the heat and add baking soda straight away. You will see that the mixture will puff up and pretty much double in size, so keep stirring the mixture and don't stop stirring at this stage. It's just chemistry happening. In a different bowl, we're gonna add sugar together with sour cream and eggs, and these are going to be our layers, so the sort of drier ingredients. We're going to mix everything together, and you want to use a whisk and just incorporate all the ingredients until it's nice and smooth. As some of you know, I have launched my online cooking school where you can learn how to make the most amazing cakes ever. I've got level 1, 2 and 3 for beginners to advanced, and you'll be able to learn the beautiful mousse cakes. You can also do this as a gift for somebody who loves cooking and baking. I think it's an awesome present. And of course, if you wanted to learn yourself. Each course has over 20 to 40 video lessons in there where I teach you all the skills, different cakes and unique designs. We also have a Facebook community group for all the bakers that join my course, and you will have my unlimited support throughout teaching and learning. I really hope to see you in my online cooking school, and if you have any more questions, then leave the comments down below. Once your mixture has cooled down, your butter mixture, you need to make sure it's nice and cool, or at least slightly warm to the touch. Because we're going to be adding this to our eggs, we don't want to cook the eggs, so add this a little bit at a time and mix everything together until it's nice and smooth. Then I like to sift my flour straight away into the mixture, and you can use a whisk to incorporate all the ingredients together, or a spoon. It's completely up to you. We're going to be adding flour in stages, so the mixture doesn't get sort of big lumps or anything like that. So it's quite it's a quick process, but it just requires some steps that you need to do. So just mix all your mixture together and then add more flour and sort of repeat the process until you finish with your flour. At this stage, I actually put a glove on and decided to mix my mixture by hand, as I find it's the easiest way. You really feel the dough and it doesn't get stuck to anything. And well, except apart from your hand, but that's okay because you're going to be using that later to sort of shape up the dough. So you want to mix that through and just kind of go around. We don't want a very sticky dough, but you don't also want to add too much flour. So the flour, the dimensions that I've given you, they might vary slightly, completely, depending what flour you have. So always add 1 to 2 tablespoons if you feel like the flour is too wet. At the same time, we don't want it to be very hard. We want it to be nice and soft and almost a bit sticky, so that's completely fine. So once you've added your last bit of flour, you want to knead your dough. You see the consistency has changed and it's much easier to roll it out. And that's how it needs to look. It needs to be nice and soft, but not stick to your hand. You don't want to mix it too much. This is enough. And now we're just going to place it onto our counter. And you always want to flour the bottom and the top of your dough with some flour, just to make sure it doesn't get stuck anywhere. Like with any honey dough, it's a very delicate dough, but trust me, the results are totally worth it, and it's the best cake ever. And this is a no-bake honey cake, so I really hope this version will be really easy for you guys as well. It still requires some steps. Once you have kneaded your dough on a floured surface, you're just gonna cut it into equal pieces. I do like to use the scales to measure each sort of piece that I'm gonna be cooking later, because you do want even layers. If you don't measure the dough, the layers can be bigger, fatter, smaller. So it's really important to use the scales to make sure they're roughly around the same amount of grams. And guys, if you don't have scales, this is something I feel very strongly about. You have to have digital scales in your kitchen. They really cost, $5 or $10, and it's the best thing in baking. You cannot cook without scales in baking and make sure, and expect your desserts to be amazing. So it all comes down to the right amount of ingredients and weight. So once you've shaped up all your balls, we're going to roll each piece of the dough on a floured baking paper. You can also do this on a normal sort of your counter, but I like the baking paper as it doesn't stick to it too much. You always want to kind of add flour onto your rolling pin and on top of your dough a little bit, just to make the rolling process easier. So it's quite a big cake. I'm using 18 centimeter, which is 7-inch cake ring to cut out the layers. If you wanted to make them smaller, or maybe 2 cakes, you can do that. So just roll out the size that you need so you can cut out your perfect circle. Again, you don't have to cut the circles out. You can also use a plate or anything else that you have in your kitchen, but cutting out the circles makes the whole process a bit easier and neater. And here you can see I have placed my dough onto a frying pan, and it is on a medium heat at first, and then you want to lower it to the very low. You're going to cook each layer for about 2 to 3 minutes, depending on your pan, and make sure it's a non-sticky pan. It's pretty much like cooking pancakes. I make that comparison because when I was frying them, I was like, whoa, they're done really quickly. And just a few tips, when you're rolling out the dough, always just flour it and roll it out very, very slowly and gently. The slower you roll it out, the higher the chance that the dough is not going to break or tear apart. And it's quite, a relaxing, slow process. So add flour and just then cut out the perfect circle that you need for your cake. And then when you place it onto a pan, I do use gloves because the pan is hot and you do want to stretch out the dough when you put it onto your frying pan. And I just left the camera here just to show you the process, how quickly it cooks. And the way to know when it's cooked is just it has these little bubbles on top, and that's when you should turn it around. You will also be able to smell it, that's another clue. And you can always kind of have a little sneak peek and turn a little bit around and see if it's starting to get brown and golden. Here I've got all my honey cake layers. So they look like a huge stack of pancakes, but they're not. And I'm using my classic sour cream filling, which you will find in the recipe, but pretty much you can use any filling here you want. But this is delicious. It's sour cream with cream and sugar, and that's like the most classical delicious filling ever. I find it's the best. And you want to add quite generous amount of cream onto each layer. So you want to stack the layers one on top of each other, add a lot of cream in between, and just kind of repeat with the rest of your layers until the cake becomes huge. And you can see that my cake layers aren't even that perfect, even though we have cut them out. So if you were a perfectionist and you wanted this to be more of a perfect looking cake, you can always just cut out another circle from the circle, if that makes sense. But this, because it's a no-bake cake, you're not going to have any crumbs. But if you've been baking honey cakes before and you have some crumbs left over, you can always keep them. Or you can also use crushed Graham cookies or Biscoff cookies, whatever you basically have in your kitchen. You can always cover the cake in that. I'm using some leftover honey dough crackers together mixed with biscuits, and it's kind of a naked cake look. I really wanted the layers of cream to poke out together with the crushed biscuits and everything around it. Decorate your cake how you want, and I've also added some sticks. So these are just kind of like large wood sticks into my cake, so it holds it well. Because the layers can slide, you want to make sure you have something to hold them while the cake sets in the fridge. So when the cake is sort of stayed in the fridge for at least 6 to 8 hours, you see it's gone down and it's kind of, the cream has really soaked into the layers, and it looks amazing, guys, already. Nobody will be able to tell that this is not a honey cake that you haven't baked. All the layers look beautiful inside, just look at those. And the cream is delicious, the flavor is there, you really get to taste the honey. You really have all these layers. I think we had around 12 to 15 layers when I fried it. But here you go, guys, no bake honey cakes. I really hope you make this, enjoy it. It's so delicious, yummy, very creamy, very sort of reminds me of my childhood with each bite, and I can't wait to see your versions because that's one of the most popular cakes ever.